le fait que j'ai la foi, que je suis chrétien et catholique, et que je crois ma musique est un message dans un monde qui est atroce et où il y a beaucoup de crimes et de choses horribles. Ma musique est un message d'espérance, d'espérance peut-être pour après la mort, mais quand même d'espérance et de lumière.
Olivier Messiaen is widely regarded as one of the world's greatest living composers. He draws his musical inspiration, above all, from his profound Catholic faith, a faith which provides him not only with specific themes for his music, but also a philosophy, often expressed in a passionate devotion to nature. His love of the natural world is expressed in his frequent imitations of birdsong, and more recently, in the dramatic evocation of monumental landscapes. He's immersed himself in other kinds of contemplative culture, often from the East, absorbing not only spiritual ideas, but also the rhythms and colours of Oriental music. Throughout his life, he's been a mentor for generations of younger composers. His contribution to this century's music is assessed by some of these, including one of his most recent students, a composer of a much younger school.
For artists, this century has been a very difficult one. There's been a chasm often between the public and the artist, and it being such a dark century many times, artists have had to be authentic, to reflect their times in which they've lived. And yet in the middle of this turbulence, you find a almost unique figure like Olivier Messiaen, writing music of resplendent joy, hope, faith. It's quite extraordinary that someone living in these times has written music like that. It's amongst almost any artist, let alone musicians of the 20th century, it's almost unique.
Si vous voulez que je vous parle des influences, je n'ai eu dans ma vie qu'une seule influence, et elle se situe avant que je ne sois né. Ma mère était une poétesse, elle s'appelait Cécile Sauvage, et elle a écrit un livre de vers qui s'appelle « L'âme en bourgeon ». Ce livre de vers est fait pour moi, parce qu'à ce moment-là, elle m'attendait, et c'est merveilleux parce que, à une époque où la médecine n'avait pas fait les progrès que l'on voit maintenant, et on ne pouvait pas savoir quel serait le sexe de l'enfant, elle s'adresse toujours à un garçon, et en plus, elle s'adresse à un garçon qui sera un artiste. Par exemple, elle dit, en parlant de moi, l'angoisse du mystère où l'art va se briser. Mieux encore, elle dit, voici tout l'Orient qui chante dans mon être, avec ses oiseaux bleus, avec ses papillons. Or, je devais faire un voyage au Japon et je devais devenir ornithologue. Mais elle ne pouvait pas le savoir. Et enfin, elle dit, je souffre d'un lointain musical que j'ignore. Ça, c'est vraiment formidable, car il n'y avait aucun musicien dans la famille. Donc, il y a eu, avant ma naissance, cet échange entre la mère et l'enfant, et je crois que c'est ça qui a influencé toute ma destinée.
He grew up in a world of fairy tales. Not so much music at first, maybe, but by the age of 7, he was already writing things, I think, just for himself. But there's lovely stories about him and his brother putting on Shakespeare productions together, and him taking coloured cellophane, sticking them in cardboard little mini sets, and have the light coming through, shining on these little productions they did for each other of Shakespeare plays. It's very charming.
comme la plupart des enfants, je demandais un cadeau à Noël. Mais je ne demandais pas des jouets, je demandais des partitions et des partitions d'opéra. Et une année, on m'a donné l'Orphée de Gluck. Et je suis parti avec ma partition sous le bras. C'était à Grenoble, et je suis allé m'asseoir dans le jardin de ville, sur un banc de pierre, et j'ai regardé ma partition de l'Orphée de Gluck. Et j'ai lu une phrase qui est pour moi la plus belle de toute la musique, peut-être parce que c'est un grand souvenir, mais c'est vrai que c'est la plus belle phrase que Gluck ait faite. Le grand air en fa majeur du premier acte d'Orphée. Et je me suis aperçu que j'entendais ce que je lisais. Et j'ai compris là que j'étais musicien parce que j'avais l'audition intérieure. Eh bien, malheureusement, c'était la Seconde Guerre mondiale. Je suis parti très tristement en 1939, d'abord comme pionnier, ensuite comme infirmier, et puis finalement j'ai été fait prisonnier, et les Allemands m'ont emmené à Görlitz, en Silésie.
While he was there, he had nothing to eat, he was freezing, and this is the important thing, he didn't know if there was a future. And then the phenomenal thing that out of that experience comes this, hopeful is the wrong word, but this otherworldly, spiritual, intense quartet for the end of time.
À cause du manque de nourriture, je faisais des rêves colorés. J'ai une faculté assez étrange, je vois des couleurs quand j'entends des sons. Mais ça s'est accru à ce moment-là, et ça s'est accru d'autant plus qu'à Görlitz, par extraordinaire, ça se produit une fois tous les 10 ans, j'ai vu une aurore boréale. C'est absolument admirable, ce sont dans le ciel des draperies mauves et vertes qui roulent. C'est une chose absolument sublime et ça m'a beaucoup influencé. Et un certain chapitre de l'Apocalypse où il est question d'un ange qui annonce que le temps va finir, qu'il n'y aura plus de temps, plus d'espace, c'est-à-dire qu'on entre dans l'éternité, cet ange, au moment où il s'est fait cette annonce de la fin du temps, il est coiffé d'arc-en-ciel, c'est-à-dire qu'il a un arc-en-ciel sur la tête. L'œuvre a été écoutée avec beaucoup d'émotion. Je ne sais pas si le public qui était là a compris les harmonies modernes, mais nous étions tous frères, parce que nous étions tous des malheureux prisonniers, et tous souffrions de la faim, et ça a été un moment d'évasion, et l'œuvre a été écoutée avec beaucoup de recueillement.
On his return from the war, there's an absolute explosion of activity. Again, a paradox, because the war was still carrying on when he wrote pieces like Vision de l'Amen, Vingt regards sur l'enfant Jésus, Trois petites liturgies. These are exultant, glorious, powerful pieces, written at great speed, with tremendous enthusiasm. He is above all a harmonist, and the piano is a 100% harmony instrument. It has no textures, no means of controlling its timbre once the key's been struck. You have nothing but harmony and the ability to get harmony moving melodically. It's a harmonic instrument, and his style is totally harmonic.
Now, the piano has always been at the heart of his creative activity. I think for two reasons. One is that it's his own favourite instrument. He plays both piano and organ. He's been a professional organist, but he loves the piano most of all. And he's always said that because the piano works by imitation, that is, it can imitate any kind of sound colour. any kind of timbre you care to mention. He can think pianistically, orchestrally, any way you like at the piano. This has really, of course, stimulated the kind of writing he produces for the piano. The other thing is, and one shouldn't underestimate this, is the presence of his wife, Yvonne Loriot. I suppose it may be one of the greatest artistic relationships, perhaps, since Schumann and Clara Schumann. In fact, it's very much along the same lines, and I think that his love for his wife has produced an extraordinary outpouring of music for the piano. And not just solo piano, but in fact the piano is present in, I suppose, about 90% of all his music.
Suddenly, all his experiments of his youth, all his research into various ethnic musics, his research into durational rhythm, his vast catalogue of harmonic method, they all come together and produce within a space of 5 years about 4 or 5 hours of colossally active, exultant music. The most famous of all of these is Turangalila, which is the very end of this period, which is a huge song of love, and a unique work in our century, absolute hymn of eternal joy, quite phenomenal vision.
My father did the first performance of Turangalila in London, and although in Manchester my fellow pupils and I and our teacher Richard Hall already were keenly interested in Messiaen and in Boulez and other pupils of Messiaen, and had some idea of what it was about. The first performance of Turangalila was rather like falling in love, so being overwhelmed. And if I, as a grizzly old man, look back at that period, it is rather like looking at one's adolescent love affairs with all the sort of duplicity and complexity of feelings one has about such things. Whether one thinks one's adolescent love affairs would have survived into old age or not, as is another question. But I think there's a sort of complexity about something which bowled you over.
he became a teacher at the Conservatoire, but because in those days he was quite a scandalous figure, these outrageously juicy chords and these tunes and things and all this emotion, he was not one of the Parisian scene. He couldn't be given a composition class, so he was first given a harmony class, then a philosophy of music, then a rhythm class, eventually became a composition teacher. And during this period, some very remarkable pupils came through his class.
He was an extraordinarily good teacher. He has a very great appeal on the students. And we were not very many in this time, of course, because he was a kind of, evil. And among all the other teachers of the Conservatoire, of course, he was the only one whom I remember still now. And then he gave, once a month approximately, he was giving classical composition. And that was the first time, really, I discovered myself the way of composing.
Mais il y a dans le tri des cordes quelque chose d'extraordinaire qui est ici. C'est les articulations de trompette. Ce tri des cordes, nous avons vu que celui des bois donnait le mode d'oreille.
And he gave us analysis, especially I remember of Stravinsky, of Bartók. He was very fond of Debussy, and he analyzed Debussy at length. As a professor of composition, he was very open-minded, and some of his students, and myself in particular, reacted sometimes very sharply to what he said or what he commented, because it was something we accepted very quickly and very openly. But there were many things we did not accept at all. And from this period, I've kept always the feeling that a teacher, when he wants to be a good teacher, has to be as open-minded as that.
I was a student, and I was overwhelmed by being allowed into the presence of a great man, and he is a great man. But he struck me in the Paris of the mid-50s as an alarmingly naive man. He something that emanated from the organ loft into a world of Sartre and Beckett, and it seemed a sort of an extraordinary contrast to go out of the Salguno in the Conservatoire, where we had our lessons, into the world of phenomenology or existentialism or whatever. He nevertheless has the greatest sensitivity to the word. I mean, he's a literary critic of great astuteness. I mean, dealing in class with Claudel or with Shakespeare or with Maeterlinck particularly, or Mallarmé, I mean, he made one aware of finesses in the poetry, quite apart from the way these poets were used in the music.
Mon rôle a été surtout, en dehors des analyses et de tout ce que je leur ai expliqué, de m'effacer, d'oublier ce que j'aimais moi-même pour essayer de trouver ce qu'ils devaient aimer eux et quelle était leur voix propre. Donc avec chaque élève, je changeais de veste et j'essayais de devenir comme l'élève et de voir quelle était sa voix et ce qu'il fallait qu'il fasse, ce qui était mauvais pour lui et ce qui était bon pour lui, exactement comme fait un confesseur ou un médecin.
There was a kind of period around the 1950s where there was a kind of backlash between him and his students, and therefore one sees a great deal of change in his works. There is no more this type of writing with modes, with tonality, with a kind of omnipresent harmony. But on the contrary, he begins to write much more, let's say, atonal, without any tonality, mainly, with more anarchic intervals, with emphasis much more also on some, on the unexplored, on the new.
And then, having turned from this very abstract, constructivist world, he sort of, in some way, gives up on contemporary civilization and goes entirely to nature. And the way he finds nature is through birdsong and landscapes.
This transcription of birdsong is highly personal, and therefore is an entirely imaginative and stylistic thing, and that's how it should be thought of. It's not a documentary process at all. It's a stylistic process.
So I don't see exactly the point, and I see the point in the same time. I don't see the point to really to be so faithful to, to notations of bird songs if you deform them so strangely by expanding all the intervals in such a way. And in another way, I can very well understand this position, because bird songs for him are just a kind of material, an aesthetic material, which he uses practically as much as he wants.
Within unruined nature, he finds a reflection of his faith. The birds, for him, they sing simply for the joy of existence.
His attitude to nature is a very real and a very concrete one. I mean, I heard him say, painters paint from nature, why shouldn't composers compose from nature? And that means literally transforming herd phenomena, whatever they, waterfalls, birds or fish, or I don't know, whatever phenomena in nature make noises, storms and lightning, and actually trying to represent them within the confines of music, just in the same way as a painter would try to represent an observed landscape and frame it and do it in paint.
Messiaen in the 20th century music has a very strange place. He's a man who was preoccupied strongly with techniques, but anyway, who put forward, in the first place, expression. Second, is very Catholic, very deeply religious, and always his vocabulary is full of words like ecstatic or luscious sounds or voluptuousness of sound. He has a kind of revolutionary idea, and in the same time, he has a kind of very conservative taste for what the essence of music is. So I think that's a man who is exactly in the center of some very important contradictions of this century, in a position which to me remains still mysterious. Maybe the importance of him, that he solves these contradictions for himself without solving them for other people.
In many ways, he's a model. The lesson to search around you and inside you, that's an eternal message which often gets lost. And he's always been a beacon for that way of thinking. The lesson to hear, to use your ears to the maximum and to refine them, to speak sincerely, again, that's another thing. He's a one-off, you know. He's not a man who will make a school of other composers, like there have been several this century. He's not someone who particularly comes from any particular tradition. He just landed there in the middle of this century, and with the techniques that were around him, and the most modern and up-to-date innovative techniques, he takes them in and does something entirely himself. You can compare him to Chagall, perhaps, who is sort of floating around doing these sensationally colourful, even sentimental, but I find very stirring paintings. Sort of, they come from another time, except they're using techniques of its own time. He's a in his opera, there's an angel that in scene 5 or something of St. Francis, who just comes down and plays music to St. Francis, music which is so beautiful that St. Francis faints, and that maybe is what he's wanted to do.
Welcome to the South Bank. We're here in the Royal Festival Hall with Stereo Radio 3 and BBC 2 television now together to mark Messiaen's 80th birthday, which falls this very day with a performance of his opera Saint Francis of Assisi. The composer himself is with us to hear it. He's come from Paris especially for the rehearsals and the performance. So tonight is in effect a birthday celebration with the cast of singers and instrumentalists that fills the entire stage. In charge of the proceedings is the conductor Kent Nagano. He directed several of the performances when St. Francis was first staged in the Paris Opera 5 years ago. St. Francis is sung by David Wilson Johnson, and at the point where we join the opera, he's on his own, accompanied by the London Philharmonic and the London Philharmonic Chorus. What we'll hear is the 7th of the 8 scenes or tableaux which tell the story of how St. Francis, the 13th century founder of the Franciscan Brotherhood, came to a state of grace. St. Francis prays that before death he should be allowed to experience with Christ the physical pain endured on the cross, and to feel in his heart the love of mankind which allowed Jesus to die for all of us. The chorus, as symbols of the voice of Christ, grants him this wish and inflicts the stigmata on him. When the 8th and final scene begins, St. Francis is dying, surrounded by the brothers and the voices of the chorus. He bids farewell to mortal existence, to the tangible and the intangible creations of God, and he sings with the brothers a canticle embracing death. As the brothers begin the psalm, "Lord, I cry unto thee, make haste unto me," the angel, sung by Maria Oran, and a leper whom he miraculously cured, both return to comfort him. Brother Léon, sung by Nicholas Isherwood, delivers a final poetic thought. He is gone like a butterfly, a golden butterfly which rises from the cross to go beyond the stars. And the opera ends with the chorus singing the Alleluias of the Resurrection. Now here to conduct Act 3 of Olivier Messiaen's opera Saint Francis of Assisi is Kent Nagano.
Adieu, frère Guépio. Il faut qu'en Gresserelle. Adieu, ce Capiniera. Ta tête noire. Adieu, sainte cité d'Assise. Par toi, beaucoup d'âmes seront sauvées. Adieu, Sainte et le jour, et sur chante plus. Mais notre sœur Rossignol va chanter. Chantez, petite brebis, chanterez, nous chanterons avec lui. loué sois-tu, Seigneur. De la croix
strength, glory and joy, the trinity of virtues to which the chorus sings an extended hymn of praise at the end of Olivier Messiaen's opera Saint Francis of Assisi. And great joy here in the Royal Festival Hall at the end of this long and magnificent opera. Members of the cast now coming onto the stage and being greeted with great acclaim. The brothers of the Franciscan order. David Wilson Johnson took the title role, and he's been on stage since 5 o'clock this afternoon. Cheers too for the chorus, the London Philharmonic Chorus. And now everybody, brought to their feet by tonight's conductor Kent Nagano. The London Philharmonic Orchestra, in the largest shape I've ever seen them, I think, complete with a battery of percussion instruments. Well, as I said, the composer has been here. He's been at all the rehearsals, all 20 of them. A little frail now, but coming forward to join in the acclaim. And he greets the conductor, Kent Nagano. Kent Nagano, who's been associated with this opera, Saint Francis of Assisi, right from its inception, from the earliest performances. Olivier Messiaen greeting and thanking everybody involved. Messiaen subtitles his opera Saint Francois, scenes from the life of St. Francis, illustrating his path to sainthood. So we've had such famous scenes as St. Francis kissing the leper and the sermon to the birds. And Messiaen, with his love of birdsong, had a field day with that scene. And then in this act, he witnessed St. Francis receiving the stigmata, and then, at the end, his death. In this performance, St. Francis was sung by the baritone David Wilson Johnson. The Angel, at the composer's insistence, complete with a pair of multicoloured wings, was sung by Maria Oran. And then we come to the brothers of the Franciscan order. Bernard was the bass, Jean-Philippe Courtis. Massé was the tenor, John Graham Hall. Léon was the baritone, Nicholas Isherwood. Sylvestre was sung by the bass, Roger Heath. And Rufino by the bass, Jonathan Robarts. The all-important chorus, symbolising in the first of the two scenes we've heard tonight, nothing less than the voice of Christ, was the London Philharmonic Choir. We should single out three of the instrumental soloists, the three players of that electronic instrument of which Messiaen's so fond, the Ondes Martenot. They were Jeanne Loriot, Dominique Kim and Valérie Hartmann-Claverie. The orchestra was the London Philharmonic and the conductor Kent Nagano. Tonight's performance was given in association with Yves Saint Laurent. Well, the BBC is playing its part to the full in the birthday celebrations. Our own BBC Symphony Orchestra is doing no fewer than 5 concerts, including Messiaen's music under David Atherton. There's another one next Thursday in the splendid and wholly appropriate setting of Westminster Cathedral. But in the Royal Festival Hall tonight, we've witnessed an occasion of great solemnity that's also been a heartfelt tribute to a great composer. from the South Bank, good night.